All right, it is 1:30, Reb. Let's see here. Do we have a? Yes, we do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That seems right to me. All right, so the December meeting of the PPACG will come to order. PPRTA today. I just tested to see if you were paying attention, Tyler. You normally tune me out, so exactly. All righty. Well, let's start off with, a screw up right out the chute. That's awesome. I'm drunk on holiday cookies. I apologize. They're tremendous. If you didn't get there's one of those peanut butter things left over there. That's it. There's only one left. The best thing I've ever eaten. Go get one. Fight for the last one. All right. Before we do approval of the agenda, one change to the agenda. We're going to move 9B to the end of 10. So 9B is going to be between 10 and 11. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So, seconded.
All right. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right. Seeing no opposition, that passes unanimously. Public comments on items that are not on the agenda. Would anybody like to talk about anything that's not on the agenda today? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes from the November meeting. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Seeing no opposition, that passes unanimously. The CAC report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board. Jim Godfrey, Chair of the CAC. Our meeting last week, just a couple items, a quick review for you. The city came forward with 12 contracts of note during this discussion. Item number one was the NV5 contract. This was one that we looked at last year, and it hadn't been recompeted in a while, so they have now recompeted that. Same company won that, but that's staff support, engineers, inspectors for the RTA work. Then we have a couple of bridge maintenance contracts per the discussion last month about the approval authority on those. Some supply contracts for signal and traffic control devices, and some roadway drainage and pipe lining contracts. And the CAC recommends, after discussion, recommends approval of all of those as presented to you today. At Paso County, Jennifer came and gave us a great update on the West Colorado Avenue project. The first one was a line item transfer from their portion of South Academy Boulevard from Bradley Road around to the interstate kind of area. They're moving some money out of that project temporarily into this project. So they're asking for a line item transfer of $5.5 million. And the breakout is some of that will be split up between El Paso County City and Manitou Springs. So we had a long discussion on the reason for the additional request. As you know, there's been several of the project prices increased considerably. The joint team in project management now believes this should be the last request. And so after some discussion, the CAC recommended approval of their line item transfer, which leads to the county's project request, which were 3 projects that were dependent on that approval of that line item transfer, all West Colorado Avenue related. So we recommend approval of those as well. And then of note, I want to thank the city staff. You'll get this later, but we did have a review of the PPRT on-call and ADA contract program. This is the third in a series of programs where the city staff has come and informed the CAC on how their processes are working with the use of CAC, with the use of RTA money. very informative, and we appreciate their time to put all that together. So I want to thank the city staff for doing that. And then last, Rick has got put together a contracting process review. There's been some new members, plus there's a lot of changes and additions in terms of change orders and task orders and all that kind of stuff. So Rick has taken an opportunity to put together on paper how the RTA contracting process works. And so you'll hear that from him later. And that was really the meat of our conversation, and we recommend approval of everything as presented.
All right, any questions for Mr. Godfrey?
I move to accept the report.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the CAC report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, that passes unanimously. Financial reports. Poor Bev is not feeling good today, so be nice to her.
Good afternoon. I didn't pass out financial reports because we haven't received all our revenues, and the part that we are missing is from the Department of Motor Vehicles. They started a new process and put in new systems, and they told me this morning that I was going to receive $127,000, and we usually receive between $450,000 and $600,000 a month. So they're looking into the difference, and I'll send out these reports as soon as I have a final number.
Any questions for Bev? All right, seeing none, we'll see you in a minute.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 7, maintenance, capital maintenance and public transportation contracts, 7A, City of Colorado Springs, Mr. Chavez.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. We have several items to go over, and I'll go through them real briefly.
We're not going to sign those contracts until January. That way I don't get writer's cramp.
Oh, my, these come out really small. So the first item we have is a contract for MV5 for program management, and there was a request actually a couple of years ago to recompete it. I asked for an extension. But we had MV5 and another firm, MDLI, out of Denver, submit, and the other consultant firm, they were mostly gas and oil project managers, so they didn't really have the skill sets that we felt would be conducive to keep the program running smoothly. So we're issuing a new contract to MV5 for $2.1 million. And we usually don't spend that much, but, you know, just when we estimate it, we want to make sure we got everything covered. Next, any questions on that one? Next items are, the next three are actually, we did an RFP for bridge construction under the maintenance program, and we have 3 contractors that we're going to issue task order-based contracts. So, and the bridge maintenance has the new limits of $500,000, $3 million max per year. So they will be just on call, and we'll use them as we need them. Then the next, was it 4 or 5, are supply contracts for traffic engineering, basically to supply signal poles, controller cabinets, the street signs, and wire and cable, and the heads. And again, those are kind of not kind of, but basically we put a dollar amount on them, but we may not spend that much. What traffic engineer will do is just order them as needed for maintenance, replacements, or capital projects. And these are just kind of dollar values, but we may not necessarily spend that much. And then the last 3 are pipelining contracts for our operations and maintenance group. There's several sites that need repair under the roadways, and so that's what those 3 are.
All right, any questions on the 12 contracts?
Move approval. Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. On to the, let's see here, El Paso County, Ms. Irvin.
Good afternoon, Board. Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County, County Engineer. If it's okay with the Chair, I would like to speak to our items B and C together because they are, and if you could vote on them separately because they are somewhat tied together, it's probably more
For sure.
better use of your time, more better use, yeah, that's great, of your time. So, and I also have a updated drone video for you today, but I just wanted to start off with the summary of our items. We have several items for you today.
Is the drone video related to these two items? I mean, do we need to see it
Yep.
for approval?
Nope,
Okay, can we do
Run
that towards the end,
yep, if you want.
if
or-
that's okay with the board?
Or you know what I could also do is, it's actually on the county web page, and I could, we could send out a link to everybody.
That'd be awesome.
We'll do that. Okay. Or, you know what, if you want to play it while I'm talking, that would be great, too. You could play it while I'm talking.
Sounds awesome.
So,
Let her rip.
Today's item, and hopefully, first of all, I just want to say, this is an item, hopefully it's not a surprise. We talked about it, and first of all, before I forget, I wanted to thank our member jurisdictions. We've been working on this collaborative project with the City of Colorado Springs, Manitou Springs, and the staff and all of the elected officials in each jurisdiction have been great to work with. And so, just so that you know, there's on each of the streets, there's names, so you should be able to kind of understand what's going on. But today we're asking for a line item transfer. In August, we gave you a heads up that this was coming, and we said about $5 million, about five and a half, so hopefully this isn't a surprise. And the share is as follows, about $1.5 million for the El Paso County, about $3.8 for Colorado Springs, and about $70,000 for Manitou Springs. And so this line item transfer, what we're doing is that the county is, again, covering that through another one of our projects. I feel comfortable with that because that project has not yet started. It's the South Academy project. We intend to get into design next year. And I know that with the amount of funds that we have remaining and then the budgeted funds for 2019, we will have plenty of funds to get started on that design and not be held up. So that's how the funding split is going to be. So as you know, we have run into significant issues in this project. First of all, we knew that we would be coming back as we got further along and completed all the design. We'd be coming back and talking about additional cost as we firmed up those additional costs. As you know, we came out with 80 to 90% design plans and purposefully went ahead with this project even though that we knew that we didn't have 100% design plan. So we knew we'd be coming back to address this issue. So how that money is going to be spent is that we are going to dedicate about $500,000 to our design contract. And that design contract, a large part of it is for the property acquisition that is ongoing. At this point, we have about 7 properties left to get under contract and acquire. So we are making great progress at this point in regards to that and wrapping that up. The additional cost for Jacobs, which is our contract management, and these are the folks who are out on site ensuring that all the quantities and all the work is done per standards and done right, is Jacobs. And essentially, we're pushing this project out about another 6 months, and so that's the cost to make sure that we have people out on site and overseeing the project. And then finally, Wildcat Construction, we have approximately $4 million, and I think we did a good job of trying to, hopefully you read your packet, really identify exactly where that funding is going. And so just to follow up, and we also did add in some extra future costs to accommodate for, on-site construction. So this is the $5.5 million is, and I know that Jim said we said no more, but I said this is our best estimate and our best forecast at this time, and I didn't promise we wouldn't come back, but I think that this covers the bulk of it, and if we come back, we're gonna be explaining that very well. I think this it's likely that we anticipate being substantially complete by the 1st of June. That is also dependent on weather and the resources as they come along. One big hurdle that staff has been working on is utility relocation right along the bridge, and looks like we are able to get around that hurdle here by the first of the year. So I think we're making good progress. The other thing I'd say is that Colorado Springs Utilities has been great to work with, and moving along the project, and you can see a lot of the work that they have going along in the drone. I also say that this drone was not paid for by the project, so just to make sure that our public funds are not being expended on that, but it's a great view of the project, and you can see the great progress. If you have any questions, I'm here. Project manager who is out on site every day, Brett is here as well. And then I know Shelley is also here in the audience, and so is Mike from each of the jurisdictions. So,
Any questions? All right, I'd entertain a motion on 7B.
I move for approval of item 7B, the West Colorado Avenue project.
Second?
All right, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That passes unanimously. Entertain a motion on 7C.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Seeing no opposition, that passes unanimously.
I just say before you know it, a ribbon cutting's going to be here, so we'll be starting to prepare for that.
That's going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome, so thank you.
All right, on to agenda item number 8. We're going to do the public hearing and approval of the budget. So we're going to do a presentation, then we'll open it up for the public hearing, and then move on from there.
Okay, so last month you had the presentation part of this. And there is a change that Rick is handing out, and it's just because of the line item transfer that was just mentioned on West Colorado Avenue, and it affects pages 5 through 7. And it just affects the carryover funds in each of the projects that she outlined, moving the $5.5 million from the Academy Boulevard Bradley Ramps project to the West Colorado Avenue projects. So today, if you open the public hearing for public comment and then approve the resolutions, both to approve the budget and appropriate the funds, unless you have any questions for me about the budget.
Are there any questions?
You gonna go home and take care of yourself?
All right, seeing none, we will open the public hearing. Does anybody have comment on the 2019 budget hearing and approval process at all? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And so what we'll do here is we actually have 2 resolutions. We can move them all in one motion, but as you make the motion, it's to approve the 2 budget resolutions. First of all, is there any discussion from the board?
Move approval of the 2 budget resolutions. Second?
All right, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right, agenda item number 9. We're on to the 9A, the City of Colorado Springs Transit Services Monthly Report. Mr. Blewett.
Good afternoon, board members. Craig Blewett, Transit Services Manager with the City of Colorado Springs. You do have our monthly report in your agenda. Just going over a couple of highlights. Our local route service, again, we had an increase compared to last year for the month of October, and that's 2 months in a row with an increase, and that's healthy. That's good. There was one more weekday this year than last year, which always helps. But once again, we've turned the corner and heading in the right direction. There's also an increase in ADA service, about 4.4%. Again, one more weekday will make a difference in ADA service. In Vanpool, saw an increase in one-way trips of 18%. Also, if I may, in terms of our quarterly report, our quarterly report is also in your agenda. I don't know if you have any questions about that at this point in time that I might answer.
Any questions on the transit report? Yes.
Yes. Craig, I was noticing that this appears to be a relatively large increase month over month, or year over year in terms of October. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. I better turn that on. If I know how to do that.
You push the face.
Face, thank you. I've only been here for a year. It is a large increase, it seems to me, but there's also a corresponding lessening of boardings per the revenue service hour.
Correct.
So the question, I have a couple questions for you. Do you have an idea as to why there is this overall increase in numbers? Is there any kind of data to support that?
I don't. You know, you asked that when it was going down, and we looked at some things, and there were some specific routes, I think, that were probably down more than others. And we haven't really looked at this to analyze this at this point in time. I would say, however, that, you know, during the summer months, and with the Manitou Cog, or the Pikes Peak Cog being closed, that did reduce our ridership quite a bit in the Manitou shuttle. And with the change of seasons now, we're not seeing that impact.
Okay.
Right, so I think that was one of the things that we attributed the decrease to, was the closing of the incline and the reduced ridership we were seeing on that shuttle. And I would see a reversal of that at this point.
In a related question is, how do these trends compare with other systems regionally and nationally?
Sure. I think last time you asked that question, I had just read an article, I think, at lunch, like right before the meeting, that nationally they were seeing a decrease. I think around 7% is the number I remember nationally. I haven't seen anything recently that shows that other agencies are recovering like we are. So, you know, once again, I think, you know, some of the decrease was attributable to some routes and some of the construction we're having on some of our key routes as well, which I think scares away some of our riders. So maybe we're not reflecting the national condition as much, and maybe it's more of a localized condition.
And if obviously it's just something that we're interested in, so whatever details or information you could provide on that follow-up, I'd be interested in. Thank
Sure.
you.
Be happy to do that.
Any other questions for Mr. Blewett? Seeing none, thank you.
And thank you. Would you like me to stick around for the quarterly reports part of the agenda, or am I free to go?
I don't know, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
I'll think of something to ask.
Yeah. Move on to 9C, the Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition reports. Mr. Chavez, once again.
Yes, this is an informational item. Are there any questions on any of the items?
Any questions? All right, see none, thank you. El Paso County change order reports.
Just here if you have any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Urban? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to agenda item number 10, 10A, appointment, reappointment process for CAC members.
Good afternoon, Rick Sonnenberg. The CAC bylaws provide that the chair and vice chair and CAC chair, as a subcommittee of three, are, which have been appointed by the board to do this task, are charged with recommending appointments and reappointments to the at-large and at-large alternate CAC members. And at the last meeting, the board did direct the subcommittee of the board chair, vice chair, and the CAC chair to meet and develop a recommendation for appointments or reappointments of two CAC members whose terms are up December 31. Those are Tom Viersba, an at-large regular seat, and Ed Dills, an at-large alternate position. The subcommittee is recommending to the full board that the full board reappoint each of those two gentlemen on the CAC for another term.
Any questions on those? Are we?
Yes,
We do
please.
need a motion to approve the new members. Yep. Okay, that's been moved by Councilmember Bennett,
I'll second.
and seconded by Commissioner Vanderwerf. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That
Thank you.
passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, on to 10B.
Last year was the first year that the PPRTA hired a year-round lobbyist for state legislative issues. Mr. Dan Jablan. He's in the audience and is approaching the podium. I am recommending to the board that we contract with Dan again for calendar 2019 at an amount of $15,000, which is the same as last year, no increase. So that's my recommendation to the board for a motion.
Thanks, Mr. Jablan. Anything to add? What's the session going to look like?
Different than last year.
Well said.
True lobbyist. Sure you're not a lawyer? All right. Any questions about the renewal of our lobbyists? Which I'll tell you, I think we're getting a bit of a bargain here. In PPACG, we paid our lobbyists $5,000 more. Don't tell Mr. Bland that.
Mr. Chair,
Hang it!
I love to tease him and would love to take some cheap shots at him, but he's done such an incredible job that I would move approval of Dan Jablan as our counsel.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Seeing no opposition, that passes unanimously. All right, 10C.
Over the years, the contracting process has become more and more complicated, but particularly city staff. We started out with just contracts, and then we moved into change orders to contracts, and then we had task orders, and then we had modifications to task orders. So it's gotten more and more complicated. So I finally decided to put everything down on paper. I prepared a draft. I met with city staff, who are the ones who have most of the extra detail or extra complications. They were okay with it. Then I sent it to the staffs of the other member governments. They were okay with it. Then when the board approved, I revised to the draft to add the bridge maintenance task order feature that the board approved last month. And that is what is in your packet. If you're comfortable with it, and feel free to ask questions. There might be holes in it, but we think with all the review and all the eyes that have been on it that it's pretty good. But if you see any holes in it, let us know. But if you're comfortable with it, we'd recommend board approval and to call it the next board policy, which is number 30.
All right, so first of all, any questions? Does anybody feel like they need more time to review it, in which case we can bring it back next month? Or are we comfortable approving it now?
This is 10C.
Yep.
I would move approval.
I would second.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor of approving 10C, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That passes unanimously. All right, 10D.
Is simply an informational item, a reminder to board members to, if you want to seek a reappointment to the PPRTA board, you need to do that through your own member governments. And also a reminder that in January you'll be selecting your 3 officers, the board chair, board vice chair, and board secretary. And the board chair would be from the city members of the board, and the board vice chair would be from the county.
Excellent. We will have for you January 8th,
Okay.
not because we're procrastinators, but because that's when our new board gets sworn in. Our new members will be approved in a resolution on that day, so
Great.
we'll have that for you.
Mr. Chair, we have made a decision as city council that Yolanda, David, and myself will remain on the board. I will, of course, have to leave in April, and we will name a replacement at that time. But just so you know, I'll be recommending David as the chair, representing Colorado Springs, which on the downside of that, that means 2 years in a row that we will have had an attorney.
Well managed.
That is a big
well managed board.
That is a
well managed board.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Additionally, Green Mountain Falls at their, I don't know if it was the last meeting, the previous meeting prior to that, did vote to reappoint myself and then also Reb Wilson as our CAC member. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Any of the other member governments want to weigh in on what they're going to do?
rain?
They're going to decide that tonight.
Excellent.
So it's going to move forward.
Perfect. All right, well, we'll have all that done, so just a reminder, it needs to be done by January 9th. All right, CDOT. Well, any other questions on board approvals? Nope, seeing none. On to 10E CDOT GAP project update. I don't see the CDOT folks here. They come back?
Well, you can give it.
They're working on the gap. They're charging tolls. They may be dynamic. They may not. We're not sure at this point in time. All right. Well, I guess we'll skip.
Most of this is the same as last month, with the exception of paragraph number 4 that I got from John Hall. The second sentence, because of the current cost estimate and funding limitations on CDOT County Line Road, Palmer Divide structure replacement will not be included in the project. Funding for that replacement was tied to Prop 110, which failed.
Well, any questions on that for Rick, I guess, but
I just want to confirm, so they're still on schedule for a January start.
all right, any other questions on the GAP project update? Seeing none, quarterly reports from member governments.
Information, I'd be glad to take questions, most of which I would forward on to member governments that provide this information, but I'll be glad to try any questions you might have.
I think we're moving along famously. All right, that takes care of 10F. Back to 9 Bravo, the presentation from the City of Colorado Springs Concrete Maintenance Program.
Good afternoon, Chairman, panel members, and those in the audience. My name is Jason Hansen, Program Supervisor from your Ops and Maintenance contracted team. I'll be giving you a brief overview of our PPRTA on-call and 88 concrete program. Just a little history on myself. I have a Boston native, grew up in the North Shore. The Air Force has reestablished myself here in Colorado Springs the last 16 years, and I'm willing to bet that given the fact my family members and friends park their cars in potholes, that Colorado Springs is not the worst roads in the nation. But not to disregard our dying and aging infrastructure.
Are you a Patty's fan?
A Patty's fan?
Yeah, New England Patriots fan.
I've never heard Patty's fan.
Is that what they call them?
No.
Yeah, Patty's fan. Yeah.
Definitely a Patriots fan, but not a fan of St. Patty's Day.
I don't think we need to hear this report after all.
I am. I'm definitely a die-hard Boston fan for sure. Just a few minutes of your time. Thank you for having me today. I want to go over these slides really quick and then open up for questions at the end. Again, Jason Hansen, Program Supervisor. With this program, our goal is to provide safe and accessible routes in the public right-of-way. And with that, we prioritize the work through our citizen engagement system, which is our OMS database, CRIS database, and then I'll go into a quick 8 to 10 year outlook of what we're looking to do to provide that safe and accessible areas for our citizens. With that, really quick through our criteria for replacement, we have 4 priorities, priority 1 being the worst. With that priority 1, we encompass the surrounding areas on our schools, hospitals, health centers with a 250-yard radius. What that looks like, I'll show you here in just a few minutes on the map, but priority 1 being our highest priority down to priority 2, 3, and 4. I might also see this as a low, medium, high, and then ADA concern. ADA concern tying into our 250-yard radius around our schools, hospitals, and health centers. And that's what we're looking to do, is tie this all together so we can apply the work out in the field. Just quickly through these, those of you that have the handouts, you can retain those for your information. Here's our priority 1. You can see with the pictures exactly what priority ones look like. Rather severe considering. Priority 2, not so severe, and then so on to 3, and then our priority 4. So what happens is we get our service calls from our citizens. We log this information into our database. We send an inspector out within 1 to 2 weeks to assess the area. That information is left for that citizen as a door hanger. We're able to track that information in our database and then prioritize work based on the severity. With that, we have a very large footprint in our city, and how do we get this work done? If you take a look at this map here, we're upwards of 31,000 pedestrian ramps in our city, which is an extensive amount. It's a daunting task to get the work done. So what our vision is to tie our database from our service calls into the existing ped ramps we already have and jump into it by a grid system, which this outlines here. If you look at the areas in red, those are our school zones. From the parcel 250 yards out, and then our blue areas are our hospitals, emergency centers, health services, all that. So what we're looking to do is, which we've already implemented for a game plan, is to tie that database into these zones systematically throughout our city, given the current funding we have. This is our 8 to 10 year outlook on this, addressing the needs of our citizens. These pictures are a couple before and after pictures. This ramp on the top, well, no ramp on the top, missing ramps, was about 3 months ago. And then here's our after picture about 2 months ago. With that being said, it did not take 3 months to do this work. It's just a couple weeks over there. And this is around the surrounding area of Roy Wasson. So a couple before and after pictures. Both these corners, northwest corner and northeast corner, before, the after on the bottom, and then so on. That's the work we're doing today based on our prioritized system, and that's what we're looking to do, underlining in those surrounding areas, taking in all the information we get from the citizens. We can't do that without that information coming in, and also the 30,000-foot overview of those properties and how do we tie us all together.
Well, what's kind of the average cost of doing one of these intersections?
I'll tell you, in the ramp itself, one ramp is around $4,200.
That just includes it coming down to one side, not the other?
So the ramp itself includes the curb ramp opening, then the ramp and the landing behind it. This particular corner, without pulling those numbers, is a little bit more than $4,200.
Okay.
Question? There's a 4,200 for a corner or for one dimension?
For single directional, we're looking at about $4,200.
Okay. Commissioner Vanderwerf?
So this is there's 2 single directional ramps on this corner right here, and then opposite that, sorry.
So it's probably like $8,000, $8,500. Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Yeah, so, thank you. You have an enormous number of curbs all over the city. I mean, tens of thousands of them or some kind of a number like that. Where are you kind of on an overall basis about trying to get there? Because I know you're working on ADA compliance, and you've done an enormous number of these, but you've got a lot more to do. So do you kind of track your 10% complete, 30% complete?
We do track, and based off our 2 current fund sources, to include 2C, everything is tracked diligently through that process where we're at. I don't have the numbers on me. Those numbers can be pulled at any time where we're at percentage-wise throughout the city. I can tell you now, 31,000 pedestrian ramps, preliminary assessments are looking at about 60% out of compliance based on the criteria set in front of us. What that means is we have upwards of 18,000 pedestrian ramps that are out of compliance. And that could be just one way or the other. It could be a missing ramp. It could be it's out of compliance by 2, 3, 4%. It could be out of compliance just by a hair.
So you have 32,000 altogether in the city, and you're 60% out of compliance? Is that what I heard?
So far, the preliminary assessments we're looking at about 60% out of compliance, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's why we had the PedRamp assessment team. We're out in the field assessing all these areas so that we can re-engage and prioritize our work.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Bennett?
Yeah, I just wanted, I think you guys can get the idea of how critical this is for our city. There are parts of our city, I'm going to use Pleasant Valley as an example, that was built in the 50s. Many of those sidewalks, they didn't build ramps during the 50s. And so we're having to go in and replace a lot of those. It's not that the ramp doesn't meet qualifications. They don't exist in a lot of that portion of the city and some of the city. But there are some ramps that we did do that no longer meet the criteria, and that's what he's talking about needn't go back through this. Without getting into any detail, because I can't share any of that, but there is a lawsuit related to the ADA compliance, and this is a critical component for us. We want to be the most ADA compliant city in the nation, and we've got a lot of work to get there. And this will really help us. And I will tell you, Jason and his staff have been doing an incredible job. And if you look around and you go, ooh, there's a ramp, there's a ramp, there's a ramp, well, that means they were just there. But they're doing this on a very diligent and important basis, and they're not doing it quickly. They're doing it responsibly.
Correctly.
Because of the impact of this. There could be some, if you look on this, you can see the reddish portion at the base, which is the dimpled portion of that. There are some ramps that don't have that. That's the ones that aren't in compliance. So the ramp may be there, or the slope may not be accurate, but there's just a lot of work that has to be done on this.
And what we do, considering those ramps that are don't have the truncated domes, which you see in the picture, we have a program on board, that methacrylate, which is an adhesive that applies those. So the ramp is falls within specifications, and we're able to not reconstruct the ramp, but apply an adhesive such as this, and get that ramp in compliance with the truncated domes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yeah, my question was the dimpled part, because in my neighborhood, that's the part that's failing. So I'm wondering, what's the requirement of that, and what's the life expectancy of that versus just concrete?
The failures you may be seeing is based off our old structure we put in the ground, which is a brick paver.
Yes.
Such, and we don't do the brick pavers anymore.
Okay.
This is a panel made out of a metal.
Well, what's the requirement, though, that requires that? What's the purpose?
The purpose
what's
is
the
to allow the visually impaired to know that at this identified area, they're going out to an open road.
Okay, because
that's
of the
the
dimpling.
visually
Okay,
impaired.
okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, got it. Okay, and I'm glad you clarified that, because where I live, yes, that brick stuff, which is what I thought maybe this still was,
Yes,
that's
sir.
the part that's failing first.
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
unfortunately, in the top picture, what you see there is very common throughout our city. Very common.
All right, any other questions before we move on here? Nope.
A couple reference websites you can go to submit a service request, or you can call into our Center of Citizen Engagement at that number located there. All right, thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we don't have a need for an executive session today, so no need for agenda item 11. 12, I don't think we have any updates on our case.
Still waiting, patiently waiting.
All right, announcements from member governments, agenda item number 13.
I have one.
Yes.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned.
Yeah, every time I go walking on my street, that's the thing I see. It's all
That part that failed.
It's all, yeah, it's all torn up, but it's a different material now. Yeah, and it is. I was going to describe it as brick style. I'm glad you asked the question.
It's not, because they can go